Hey, what is up, guys? Pine Belt Beer Reviews back here again with you today for another one, and this one today is actually going to be, as far as I know, my first revisit I've done on this channel, and it is, speaking of channel, it is the Irish Channel Stout from NOLA Brewing Company out of New Orleans, Louisiana. I've had this one, like I said, it's a revisit, so I've had this one before. I really liked it. You can actually, I think, find it on. I'll put a link down on my first review of it. I did like in 2014, something like that. It was a few years ago. So doing it again, I think that might have been possibly the last time I had it. For some reason, this just isn't a beer I typically seek out or just kind of buy again. I have no idea why. I just haven't bought it again, but wanted to this time. So I picked it up at the store and wanted to go ahead and do a revisit on it and try it out again. So let's go ahead, get it cracked open. It gets an 89 on Beer Advocate. The Bros also give it an 89, a very good score. It gets a 3.9 on Untapped, which is a very good score. Rate Beer gives it a 92%. It is a very well-regarded, well-reputed stout, American style stout. Being that, like, I think the last time I did a review, I was mentioning how it almost seemed like it was maybe NOLA's attempt at like a Irish dry stout, what with the Celtic cross and everything on there. But whereas Guinness is just kind of going for an emphasis on malted barley and roasted kind of barley malt and everything like that. A lot of these American style stouts go for an emphasis on coffee flavors, so they often brew these with coffee. Same thing here. It says it has a strong espresso front end and finishes with that baker's chocolate, which I talked about last time. Yeah, that's what I've found about American style stouts is that oftentimes they do an emphasis on hops or coffee, sometimes both. I believe that this is just on coffee, but it does have American hops. So coffee and hops in this one. And with that, it gets a very beautiful kind of three-finger, very spongy meringue-like tan head on that, with a lot of fairly large bowls that are all kind of popping, but they're not really... It's not really diminishing the head much at all, and the head looks very sticky, looks very just almost kind of like a cake batter. Very good sign there for a stout, as far as I'm concerned. And then with the body, very almost black in this sort of Guinness Imperial pint glass, with a bit of a chocolatey sort of brown around the edges that's with some of that light coming through. So yeah, it looks really great in this glass. Let's go ahead and go for the aroma on it. Very pleasantly surprised that I'm not just getting coffee. I'm mostly getting that sort of roasted barley malt. A little bit of chocolate there. A little bit of kind of almost like licorice root. Not like licorice candy, but licorice root. Kind of an herby, sort of really kind of rooty sort of smell going for it. But I am getting some of that baker's chocolate as well, and that's really nice. It really just smells like that kind of baker's chocolate you get at the store. Break open the package and then just kind of take a big whiff of that fresh sort of bittersweet chocolate. And then getting maybe a little bit of hop oil in there as well. Not much coffee, but mostly just excuse me, I'm choked up today. Mostly just kind of this not overemphasized, but just emphasized focus on those sort of bitter roasted barley malts. So smells really great. Let's go ahead and go for the flavor on this one yet again and see what we get. A bit more of a beer flavor than I remember, meaning it's not very desserty tasting. It's got that just sort of all-encompassing sort of beer note to it. With those hops, and I think it's because of the amount of hops that I'm getting. There's hops in it, but it's almost kind of like, the amount of hop bitterness you get out of drinking a PBR or something like that. Or I'm not really thinking about Budweiser so much; those are kind of sweet. But like a Pabst Blue Ribbon, Schlitz, some of those kind of old-fashioned style lagers, meaning like the ones like the kind of mid 20th century type. How the beer was kind of like that, and then you still get it with like Pabst Blue Ribbon and Schlitz and beers like that, where it's just this nice, really floral, somewhat bitey kind of hoppiness, and it's present in this. It's just enough hops to kind of remind you that this is a stout, but they're kind of brewing it, almost kind of as a beer as well with those hops added to it. Head sticking around really nicely, getting a good kind of mouthful of foam with each sip. That has flavors all in itself. So that's very nice. Definitely getting the baker's chocolate. Very bittersweet. It's chocolatey flavor, but it is really like not like a chocolate bar like you would think. It's definitely something that would go very well being with some roastier flavors like these roasted barley malts, which I'm also getting the darker barley malts that are also in this. Maybe a small amount of cinnamon, very small amount, but it's really nice that it's really nice with that, or maybe like some sort of like kind of allspice with which bittersweet chocolate, roasted barley malt, bit of kind of holiday kind of spice flavor. Just goes really great. Those three together. Not getting a whole lot of coffee, but maybe just sort of like the essence of coffee beans, like fresh coffee beans, but not really like any cold brew necessarily. But I could see espresso definitely being a component, a part of all these flavors in this particular brew's profile. The mouthfeel is definitely medium, verging on medium heavy, or I should say medium heavy, verging on heavy. It is definitely a very bold stout on the mouthfeel with the body. Not a whole lot of carbonation, which is good. A lot of times carbonation can be great in darker beers. My kind of uh, feeling though is the carbonation works better in the sort of brown ales and things like that, not so much in the stouts and really dark, heavy, kind of heady stouts and darker ales and whatnot. But and as I'm saying, there's not much carbonation in it. I'm sitting here like a dozen mini belches, trying to talk through them. And then the alcohol content, which I did not mention, is 6.8 ABV. So you're getting a little bit of alcohol warmth on the back, but it's really nice, especially if you're looking for this to drink this, kind of 50 something degrees. Leave it out of the fridge. Leave it out of the fridge for a little bit. Kind of let it warm up for sure with these types of big, bold, dark ales and stout and just whatever. What have you. Always good to kind of let them sort of warm up a little bit so they can kind of open up more of those sort of richer flavors and everything instead of drinking it ice cold. And with a little bit of the alcohol warmth from this, if you had it sitting out like it is now, the glass is starting to sweat a good bit and everything, and the beer itself is starting to warm up. It would be like a good cold weather brew if you were already in somewhere like a warm house, and especially around holidays coming up and everything, since it is September now. So it's that alcohol warmth is actually very nice along with this type of style. There is a little bit of a sharp kind of twang at the end of it that I'm assuming is coming from those hops, which if they were to ease back on it a little bit, I think it would make this a really great stout, or I should say like an excellent stout, because it's already great for sure. But there is a little bit of this like on the back end, this sort of sharp sort of twang of those hops that kind of when you get those really kind of nice bittersweet kind of chocolate notes with the coffee, and then you get this sort of hop twang at the end of it. It kind of pulls back from it a little bit, I think, as opposed to I believe the last kind of judgment I made about it was that it was top-notch, excellent stout. I think it could do with like maybe pulling back the hops a little bit, just for my personal taste. But overall, this is definitely an absolutely great stout. I would not put past anybody, would not put it past anybody who wants to go ahead and call this an excellent stout, because it is very, 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 very good. NOLA's Irish Channel Stout. Definitely recommend picking it up with the Celtic cross on the black can, and the Celtic font on there as well. So I definitely recommend trying it if you see it. And with that, guys, until next time, thank you for watching.